I'm sure as a buyer or seller, you've gotten mixed answers about who pays the compensation, the commission in the state of Florida. Is it the buyer or the seller? How does it work? We're going to figure it out and talk more about it. So let's first start with the buyer's side, the exclusive buyer's broker agreement. Now, this was a form introduced back in August of 2024 that says a buyer is going to be paying or compensating a buyer's agent for duties and work performed on their behalf, representation. So the way this has happened is because of collusion. There was a lawsuit with the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and they made a conclusion that buyer pays buyer's agent and the listing agent gets paid by the owner or the seller. So this law has been implemented, but yet it's kind of up in the air when it comes to really who's paying the compensation or the commission at the end of the day. It's all negotiable. So the way this form works is this. You're going to have a start date and an end date, and this is with the exclusive buyer's broker agreement. You're going to have the type of property, the description of where the property is going to be located or the area you're looking in, if it's Volusia or Flagler County. In this case right now we're in Volusia. And you're going to be compensating this agent, you as a buyer, to perform the duties of looking for properties, doing a comparable market analysis, CMAs, taking and doing showings of this property. Now this commission is all negotiable, so you have to take that in consideration. It could be a percentage like 1 or 2 or 3%. It could be a hybrid, say $500 plus 1%, or it could just be a flat fee of $3,000 or $4,000. It just all depends on negotiation. Now I would personally recommend to a buyer, look around, talk with different realtors, interview them. Just don't go with the first one. You want to go with at least 2 or 3 interviews before you make a decision. And you're not obligated to work with the buyer's agent. That's another thing you need to keep in mind. Now we're going to get more into the obligation of working with the buyer's agent, but before we do that, let's finish the form. So there's a start date, end date. There's a description of the area, the property, if it's in Volusia County. There's the buyer's agent obligations to you, their performance. There's obligations you owe to the buyer's agent, cooperating, disclosing financials, what lender are you using, meeting at properties on a regular basis or on time. So this is another thing that you're obligated to do. That's part of your performance as a buyer. Besides that, again, you're going to be compensating this person. There's a retainer fee involved, a non-refundable retainer fee. Again, this is all negotiable. You don't have to pay the retainer fee. I wouldn't, but you need to negotiate that too, plus the commission. And that's kind of where it sums up how this form is taken in consideration for your benefit when dealing with a buyer's agent, or not your benefit, because when you use a buyer's agent too, that's an additional closing cost you got to think about, and we're going to get into that. You need to weigh the pros and cons of using a buyer's agent. Like I said, there's an additional closing cost fee. It's 2% or 1% or whatever it is that you decide to negotiate with the buyer's agent, what you're going to be paying this person. That's part of your closing costs on top of everything else when it comes to lender's points, this commission, proration of taxes, other fees that the title company will charge you. So you got to also take in consideration your debt to ratio. So you need to have to pay this plus your down payment on top to make sure you can still qualify for the same property. Now, you're not obligated to use a buyer's agent at all. You can go directly to the listing agent. And that's another good point that we will get into in this whole discussion about who's paying the compensation, the commission. But you don't have to use a buyer's agent, which is amazing. You can go directly to the listing agent and cut a deal. Now, maybe if you're a brand new to this whole real estate thing and you're a first-time home buyer, maybe you want to use a buyer's agent. But if you have more experience, you can go directly to the listing agent. And really, that's a catch-22 because listing agents want to put deals together and they want to help the buyer as much as they want to help the seller. Now, in the state of Florida, the listing agent cannot represent you as a buyer and the seller at the same time. They're transaction brokers. By default, all agents in the state of Florida are transaction brokers. But if you wanted to get representation and not have a transaction broker, you have to have what is called a single agent, and you would have to get representation by having a buyer's agent. But again, it all depends on what you want to do, not to get complicated about the whole circumstance, but going directly to the listing agent, you could save a lot of money, get the better deal, because he or she, as a listing agent, they want to put a deal together, and they want to help you as much as helping the seller and facilitate a transaction, which is so important. So I turned my camera around because this part of Florida is so beautiful. I figured, hey, let me just share with where I'm at. I'm in the downtown area of Daytona. This is the International Speedway Bridge. And I want to go over a little more of the exclusive buyer broker agreement, how it works quickly. So there's both parties. There's a buyer's agent, and then you as a buyer, or you and your husband or wife that are looking for properties, and you decided to interview a buyer's agent, and you found this one person. My expertise, my opinion would be, have them help you for a month, and if you need to extend the buyer's broker agreement, you can. Don't get stuck with 2, 3, 4 months with one person. All of a sudden you might find out you don't like that agent and you want to switch, and then there's of course a cancellation fee. So there's a start date, there's an end date to this. There's a description of the property and the area where you're looking for, if it's a townhome, if it's a condo, if it's in what county, Orange County, Volusia County, Flagler County. So where is it that you're looking for this property? Besides that, there's a retainer, a non-refundable retainer. And again, this is negotiable. I personally wouldn't pay that, but if there is a retainer, you can negotiate that as well. And of course, the commission involved. It could be 1%, it could be 2 or 3%, it could be a hybrid of $500 with a percent, it could be a flat fee. It just all depends on how the negotiation goes, right? Well, and also on top of that, there's what is called a protection period in the contract. So let's say you as a buyer sign with this buyer's agent for 2 months, and the protection period is 50 days. After the 2 months, the contract expires, and you don't go with any other realtor. You decide to look for properties yourself after the 2 months after the expiration date. If you're within the 50 days of the protection period and you, as a buyer, find a townhouse or a condo, then you're going to be obligated to still pay that buyer's agent the commission that was agreed upon. That's kind of what the protection period is. Again, another example, you signed for 4 months, and after the 4 months, you found nothing. The protection period was for 90 days. The 4 months end, and you do not renew with any other realtor, and you and your wife decided to scout around, and you found this beautiful home on the river, and it's within the 90 days of the protection period, then you're gonna have to pay that realtor a commission that was agreed upon, if it was 2 or 3%. So look at the fine print, look over that, that's very important. Now, if you have an agreement that expires and there's a protection period, but you decided to go with another realtor and sign this form, then you're not obligated for the protection period. That is null and voided. So then you're going to be with a different realtor, have a different contract in terms most likely, and you're not obligated to pay the other realtor that this contract expired anything, because you're renewed with ABC Realty instead of using the one prior. So that's another thing you need to take into consideration, that the protection period only is in effect if you, as a buyer, don't go with another realtor and you decide to scout and look for a property yourself and find something within that period of time that's stated on that line, the protection period line, 50, 60 days after the expiration of the contract, and you find something, again, you're going to be liable, you're going to have to pay a commission. So be very careful, read the contract through and through, and make sure you understand exactly the terms of the contract. Now, talking about the seller side, you as a listing agent, you're going to talk to the seller, the owner, and say, look, I can list at XYZ price. If it's 1%, 2%, 3%, or 6%. The owner's going to ask you, hey, don't I have to give a cut to a buyer's agent? No, it's not mandatory. It's not a law. It's optional. It's a tradition. It's customary, but it doesn't say, there's no law that says you have to give a cut. Now, I had some owners, sellers tell me, well, you know, if I don't give a cut to the buyer's agent, they're not going to show my property. That's not true. Remember, the buyer and buyer's agent have their own deal. They have their own form that they sign, and there's a commission guaranteed to the buyer's agent, as long as that form is signed and executed before showing properties, the buyer's agent is entitled to a commission by the buyer. Now, it's not to say that you can't give a commission to the buyer's agent to get a stronger offer, to entice the buyer's agent to do a better job or to get a higher price. But until, what are you really earning, or what are you really getting? Because if you're gonna give a commission, yeah, you're gonna get a higher offer most likely, it's not guaranteed, but then you're paying that commission, right? If you don't give a commission to the buyer's agent, you're gonna maybe get a lower offer. It's a possible that could happen, but then you're saving thousands in commissions, you see? So there's that ratio of how do you balance this? And of course, it's all about the numbers. You can give a sliding scale. You can say with a very strong offer, I'm gonna give 2%. If the offer is low, I'm gonna give 1%. Or if it's a low offer, I'm not gonna give anything. It just depends on you as an owner, as a seller, right? Now, let's say you do give 1% to the buyer's agent, and we find out that the agreement that the buyer signed with the buyer's agent is 3%, the compensation form. So then you're gonna pay 1%, and then the buyer has to make up the other 2%. So that's a total of 3% that was agreed upon with the buyer's agent. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way, again, is don't give any commission and get a low offer, or maybe you get a high offer, and that's okay. It just depends on the circumstance. Every negotiation, every contract and deal is custom to what's going on in the market. Remember that. Buyers, beware of this. I've seen this happen in transactions, and it's not good with buyer's agents. I've seen this happen before. It's unethical. Please be aware of this. Open-end agreements. I've seen this happen a couple times. Open-end agreements, open compensation agreements. In other words, you as a buyer sign for 2% to the buyer's agent for them to perform their duties, help you find a property, and then you find a property and the buyer agent says, well, you know, it was good, but I really need 2.5%, 3% for this because there's more work or because of whatever reason. That you cannot do. It's either 2% signed and that's it. It cannot be an open fluctuation and compensation. So be careful with that, buyers. You don't want to be paying more than what the agreement says. If you signed on 2%, it's 2%. It's no more than 2%. If you want to give a bonus to your buyer's agent on top of it, that's optional, but you're not liable or obligated to do that. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have questions, I'm going to leave my number on the screen. You can text or call me. Again, I'm Peter with Never 6%. Glad that I squared away most of your answers and questions to the buyer and seller compensation commission. Thanks again. Have a great day. Give a thumbs up. They're free. Real estate's not. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video about commission, buyers and seller, compensation. Thumbs ups are free, real estate's not. I'm gonna leave my number on the screen. Please leave some comments. You can call or text me. If you have any further questions, be glad to help you out. Have a great day.